You wake up to the smell of baked bread. Light comes through the wooden window, weak, yellow-tinted. It's 5:47 in the morning. You know because there's a wall clock. Analog. No backup battery, no alarm. You know because someone taught you that digital clocks are ways the outside world controls your inner time. You get up, put on the white shirt, beige linen pants. The clothes are folded on the chair beside the bed exactly where you left them, exactly where everyone leaves theirs. There is no mess here. There is no rush here. There is nothing here that isn't permitted to exist. You go downstairs to the dining hall. 12 people are already seated. No one speaks. They wait. The prayer begins when the father arrives. The father arrives. He is 58 years old, long white hair, a voice that seems to come from inside his chest, not his throat. He looks at each person at the table before beginning, 2 seconds per person. When it's your turn, you lower your eyes. Everyone lowers their eyes. He says the day begins with gratitude. That gratitude is the antidote to the ego, that the ego is what the outside world sold you as identity. You repeat along with everyone. I release what I was. I receive what I am. And then something happens. Something small. Something that will change everything. You look out the window while repeating the phrase, and outside you see a car passing on the dirt road. A white Goal, old, with a sticker on the rear window. You can't read what it says, but you see a child in the back seat. She looks at you through the window. She passes and drives away. And you realize in that exact second that you don't know how long you've been here. You weren't kidnapped. That's the hardest part to explain to anyone on the outside. You came of your own free will. You signed documents. You called your mother and told her you were fine and needed time to find yourself. 3 months ago, or maybe 4, you lost count, you were going through a rough time. A breakup, a layoff, an apartment you could no longer afford. A friend sent you a video, a man talking about emotional detox and intentional community. The video had 2.3 million views. You went to an in-person meeting, free, in a rented space downtown, 50 people, chairs in a circle. The father wasn't there that day. There were facilitators, young, smiling. They asked questions no one had ever asked you. What do you really want from life? When was the last time you felt truly free? After the meeting, a woman named Mara came to talk to you. Short hair, light eyes. She said she had noticed something in you, that you had a capacity for presence that was rare, that the father would certainly want to meet you. You went to the weekend retreat. The weekend turned into a week. The week turned into what it is now. But today, with that child in the car passing by the window, something broke inside your head. Something that had been sleeping woke up. And it woke up with a simple question. Where's my phone? You know where it is. You handed it over voluntarily on the 3rd day. There was a wicker basket at the entrance to the dining hall. Each person arriving at the retreat placed their phone inside it. The father explained that electronic devices create vibrational noise that blocks the integration process. Everyone handed theirs in. You handed yours in. You never saw the basket again after that. You never asked about the basket after that. You never asked about anything after that. Questions were welcome at the right moment in the process, and the right moment never came on its own. It was determined by someone who wasn't you. You sit, eat in silence, unsalted bread, herbal tea with a slightly bitter taste you stopped noticing after the 2nd week. Valerian, they told you, to balance the nervous system. But today you look at the tea, and you don't drink it. This is the first real moment of clarity you've had in weeks, maybe months, and the clarity hurts because it shows everything at once. After breakfast, it's time for guided meditation. 45 minutes lying down in the main hall, eyes closed, the father's voice coming from a Bluetooth speaker in the corner of the room. He isn't physically present. The voice is recorded, but no one questions this. The meditation uses a technique called dissolution of the observer. You learn to dissociate your consciousness from your body, to witness your thoughts without identifying with them. The technique has a real technical name. It's a variation of induced depersonalization. Psychologists use versions of it in controlled therapeutic contexts. Here it is used twice a day, every day, without rest, without clinical support, without evaluation of its effects. Today you don't close your eyes. You lie there staring at the ceiling, and you think. You think about your ID. They kept it for administrative purposes of the retreat. They said they would return it when you completed the integration cycle. You don't know how many phases that cycle has. Every time you got close to completing one phase, a new phase appeared. You think about your money. You signed an authorization for a voluntary community contribution of 1,800 raised per month charged to your card. You have 23,000 rays in savings. You don't know how many months have passed. You think about the photo. The photo hidden in the lining of your mattress. You hid it there in the second week, when you realized that rooms were collectively organized every morning while the group was in meditation. The photo is of you, your mother, and your younger brother at the beach in Ubatuba. You were 22 in that photo. You are smiling in a way you can no longer remember how to do. You don't know if your mother knows where you are. You don't know if anyone knows where you are. After meditation, there is a moment called pair integration. Two people sitting face to face, looking into each other's eyes, in silence, for 20 minutes. The stated goal is to develop presence without agenda. The real goal, you can only see it now, is to create artificially intense emotional bonds between community members. You cry during these sessions. Everyone cries. You think you are healing. You are being conditioned. Your partner today is a man named Renato, in his 40s, came from Curitiba, failed business, children who won't speak to him. He arrived 2 weeks after you. He believes more than you believed when you arrived. You look into his eyes, and for the first time you don't see presence. You see someone who needs help just as much as you do. But you can't help Renato right now. You can barely help yourself. The property is 12 hectares. You know, because the father mentioned it in one of the morning talks as a symbol of space for growth. There's a 2-story main house where the father sleeps and receives special visitors. A dining hall, 6 2-bed cabins, a meditation hall, a vegetable garden, a chicken coop, and a fence. The fence is not barbed wire, not concrete, it's wooden, eucalyptus stakes, 1.5 meters high. The fence exists, they told you, to delineate the sacred space of the community and protect the group's energy. You've passed through that fence before, in the first few days. There were guided walks through the forest. Then the walks stopped, without explanation. They simply stopped. The main gate is on the side of the father's house. There is always someone there, not conspicuously, not like a guard, like a member who likes to stay outside, but there is always someone. You noticed that this morning when the white gull passed by. There was a man leaning against the nearest eucalyptus tree to the gate, arms crossed, looking at the road. He never speaks. You have been in a community for 4 months that took your ID, your phone, and your money. You have identified the only guarded exit. You have a potential ally in Renato, but you don't know if he's too conditioned to act. You could try to escape alone tonight, in the dark, without your ID, without a phone, without knowing exactly where the nearest town is. Or you could spend another week earning the Watcher's trust, mapping his routine, and escape with more information, risking another week of conditioning. What do? Escape tonight or wait another week? Tell me in the comments. You decide it will be tonight, not because it's the perfect plan, but because you know what another week of bitter tea, dissociative meditation, and pair integration does to your decision-making capacity. You felt that capacity diminishing, like a draining battery, and today, for the first time in months, it's at some functional level. You are not going to waste that. During lunch, you observe the Watcher. He eats outside, leaning against the fence as always. He has a communication radio clipped to his belt, a walkie-talkie, black Motorola. You hadn't noticed that before. Or you had noticed and hadn't processed the information. Now you process everything. At 2 p.m., there's work in the vegetable garden. You go, you hoe, you water, you map the fence along the east side of the property. The east side is behind the chicken coop. The Watcher doesn't have a clear line of sight from there when he's at the main gate. There's a depression in the terrain near the fence. You calculate that in the dark, crouching, you can approach without being seen from any lit point on the property. The fence is 1.5 meters. You are 1.82 meters. You'll make it over. At 9:30 p.m., the lights in the main house go out. The father sleeps early. By 10 p.m., the cabins begin to fall silent. By 10:47, you count on the wall clock in the hallway. The sound of footsteps stops completely. You lie still, fully dressed, sneakers on. The family photo inside your shirt against your chest. You wait. At 11:15 p.m., you get up. The cabin has 2 beds. The other has been empty for 3 days. The last person who slept there was a man from Porto Alegre who said he was going to seek balance and left the community after a private conversation with the father that lasted 2 hours. You don't know what was said in that conversation. You don't know if he left of his own will. You open the cabin door. Slowly. The hinge makes no noise. You tested this during the day. You pretended the door wasn't closing properly and pressed and released it 3 times until you were sure. You crossed the 20 meters between the cabin and the chicken coop, crouching. The chicken coop smells of straw and manure. The chickens stir a little as you pass. You stop, count to 10. They stop. You keep going. The fence is 8 meters ahead. You can see the main gate from here. There's a flashlight on there. The watcher is standing, but his back is to the east side. He's looking at the road. You cover the 8 meters in 15 seconds. You put your hands on the eucalyptus stake. The wood is wet with dew. You lift your body. The fence scrapes your abdomen. You make it over. You land on the other side in a crouch. You are outside. You stay motionless for 30 seconds. No different sounds, no moving lights, no voices. You stand up and you run. The forest is about 200 meters thick. You cross it in the dark, guided by the sound of the road. Twigs snapping, wet leaves on your face. You trip twice. The second time you fall to your knees. You get up immediately. You don't stop. The dirt road appears between the trees. You stop at the edge, look both ways. Darkness in both directions. You don't know which way leads to town. You choose left. Because the white goal with the child came from the left when it passed in the morning. That means it had come from somewhere on the left. It might be logic. It might be desperation. You run down the road. After 40 minutes of running and walking, you see light, a gas station. Ipiranga brand, 2 sodium lamp poles, a parked truck, an attendant behind the glass. You go in. The attendant looks at you. You have mud on your knees, a leaf in your hair, and the breathing of someone who just crossed a forest in the dark. You say, "I need to call someone." He hands you his phone without asking anything. You call your brother. He answers on the second ring. It's 12:38 in the morning. The first thing he says is your name, and you realize you haven't heard your own name in 4 months. Here, in the community, you were called Luminar. That was your spiritual name, chosen by the Father in the first week. For a moment, you had forgotten you had another name. 3 weeks later, you give a statement at the Crimes Against Persons police station in Campinas. An investigation for unlawful confinement, embezzlement, and application of Article 215A of the Penal Code, violation of sexual freedom through emotional fraud. The inquiry will take time. It always does. You gave them the address of the property. You gave them the names you remembered. You gave them everything you knew. Renato is still there. You know this because his sister called you after the police contacted the family. She said he doesn't want to leave, that he called her and said he was fine, that he was exactly where he needed to be. You recognize the words. They were your words. From 4 months ago. You have an appointment with a psychologist specializing in disengagement from coercive groups every Wednesday. The technique she uses is called the BITE model. Behavior, information, thought, emotional control. She says the process of recovering cognitive autonomy takes between 8 months and 2 years. You ask if people fully recover. She pauses before answering. She says people rebuild themselves, that it's not exactly about recovering what they were before, it's about building something new from the fragments of what survived. You look at the Ubatuba photo on her desk. You took it from the mattress lining when you walked into that gas station in the early hours of the morning. You haven't let go of it since. They don't need weapons to hold you. They need you to believe you are free while the gate is closed. The difference between a prison and a community sometimes fits inside a cup of tea. And in the habit of not asking questions,